right, welcome to Your Time, Your Money, the show where your time is just as valuable as your money, and we know that. We thank you so much for tuning in and listening and subscribing. Very important that any listener subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe. Like, share, subscribe. Let's get it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, welcome.
Welcome, Mark. It's been a long time. I haven't seen you in almost like 2 months. I mean, it's been so busy. We've been out, working our tails off, making sure people are
Yeah, we had a little technical difficulty. What we got situated and sorted out.
The jackhammering is now done, as you can well hear.
Which we're back in the swing of things. So we got a great topic today. It's going to be a burst session, so a little bit shorter than some of our normal sessions, but I think very important because, there's a lot of, I guess you would say, different philosophies centered around the simple question of what is an advisor?
Yeah, and I think there's been, through the history of what we've done as advisors, there's been a lot of changes in the industry, right? And I want to flip our timer here so we know where we are.
Sure, let's get into it.
It's your time and
your money.
That's right. The industry's changed a lot, right? With the DOL ruling, the fiduciary ruling. I feel like people have different expectations of their advisor, and I feel like a lot of people out there actually don't have any expectations at all. And I think that's a problem, right? And that, we always like to say the problem first to know what we're tackling. But, what is an advisor? What should they do? What should they not do? How deep down the rabbit hole should you go? I have some great, anecdotal stories that I think will hit home with a lot of people. But, I think the first most important thing is the landscape.
Yeah, and a lot of that's driven by, commercial advertising. Mm. There's a lot of firms out there that in their advertisement, they say, is your advisor a fiduciary?
Right.
Or, they put things out there and clients don't necessarily know what that means.
I think people in general don't know what it means, right?
Because
anybody.
That word financial advisor can be a million different things to each person that is an investor. Yeah. But it can also be different to different professions as well.
I mean, listen, I've been in some pretty phenomenal locker rooms in my life as an athlete, and I heard some horror stories, right? Guys would trust the wrong people with their money, and they would be broke. They would have nothing when it came down to the end of it, right? And, at the end of the day, I think the first and the most important meeting with an advisor is your first meeting when you set those expectations. And you have those standards of, hey, what happens if you're sick? What happens if you're not there? What happens if, I can't get a hold of you? And then if I can, then what do those conversations look like?
Yeah,
right?
Well, and let's talk a little bit today about how we scrub advisors, meaning
right.
what resources can an investor go to check their guy out?
Make sure they're the right person.
Yeah. Make sure they're the right person.
Yeah, tackle that. Because I have some stories.
And that's a good starting point, I think, for investors is if you're going to start working with an individual or you're meeting with an individual, there's nothing wrong with looking under the hood, so to speak.
Sure.
Has this person had customer complaints before? Have there been things that are on the record? Our regulatory body is great at making sure that information is out there and maintained because they want to protect the consumer. They want to protect the consumer against somebody that maybe is not doing the right job.
Well, right? I mean, I feel like a great analogy there, right? A lot of what does every parent have on the world? Kids, right? If you go to put your kid in a daycare, what's the first thing you do?
Yeah, check out the daycare.
You check out the daycare and you see if it has any issues.
Yep.
Are there any formal issues with the daycare? And if it does have issues, what's the first question you're going to ask? Why?
Why?
What happened?
What happened?
Right.
You want to see some documentation?
Yeah.
So one place is that the investor can go and look is FINRA broker check.
Yep.
And it's a great resource. You can put in a person's name, the city that they're in, or whatever, and it tells you a lot in their detailed report about that advisor. It gives you their past history, were they at different firms. It gives you whether there were any disclosures or things that were filed that maybe a dispute or a settlement or something like that.
Yep.
And what it does, it also lays out the states that person can work in.
Right.
It lays out their licenses, and the licenses are different based on what they can do and how they can transact business with you.
Yeah.
And it's important that the investor educates themselves a little bit about what those licenses mean.
Well, I feel like, we go back to, our process. I think what makes us special, and a lot of other advisors don't do it, is we actually lead with organization, right? We lead with referring people to a great estate planning place. That's not us. We lead with a great CPA planning place. That's not us. And I feel like when you start to tie that bow and you bring in those other factors, you become holistic. And that's really what we're getting to here, is that when you talk to an advisor, it might be about a loan that you have or a debt that you have and how to pay it off. or that you're planning on changing jobs, but you're not sure if the new job offers better as it comes to comp or overtime compared to your current job that may have a pension.
Correct.
So I feel like that's where sometimes people fall short with their advisor. You could call your advisor and have a talk that's nothing to do with your accounts and more to do with your next decision, because you need that analytical brain. You need that real detached from emotion, and we're going to really think about what's the best scenario.
And there are advisors out there, and even some on our team, that are good money managers.
Right,
100%. They design and they develop portfolios, and that's their thing. You know, they're behind the scenes doing the research, the white papers. You know, where's my best investment mix? What's the best areas or sectors to be in today?
Yeah.
But not everybody that says they're an advisor is a money manager.
Correct. 100%.
And clients sometimes confuse that and say, oh, well, this is the guy that manages the investments on my money.
I think that's a great point. I want you to say that again, but make it easier. Pretend like I have no idea what that means. What's a white sheet? I don't know what that means. Help me understand that. So I want people to know.
Yeah, so a good analogy to that is, a lot of people are familiar with building a home.
There we go.
And the general contractor, or the person in charge of the home and building the home and getting it done, is the person you're hiring. But they sub out that work.
Gotcha.
So like an advisor,
electric, plumbing.
An advisor is overseeing your financial house building, so to speak.
Great analogy.
But they're subcontracting out what? They're in a contractor's case, a plumber, electrician, or whatever, whereas an advisor may be saying, hey, you know what, we're going to rely on this company to manage this part of the portfolio, this fund advisory group, or this annuity company, or this life insurance company, all those pieces of your financial home.
So almost like the conductor of the
orchestra,
train, right?
or
the orchestra, right?
Yeah, exactly. You have all the different orchestra pieces playing together, but the conductor's helping you control it, so it makes sense.
And I think, more often than not, people will switch jobs, they'll change jobs, and then they won't call their advisor. And then all of a sudden, a year or two later, we're following up, we're checking in, within 6 months, within 12 months, we call, and then it's, oh, hey, I left that job like a year ago. But the old 401k is still there, or the old, SEP is still there. And I just left it there. I didn't think about that, right? Yeah. I feel like that's got to be the number one thing you do when you're going to change jobs, make a huge life decision, whether it be buying a house or changing jobs or taking out a HELOC, right, to pay off a credit card. I just had that conversation with a dear friend. He had a huge credit card and no mortgage. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. How did this happen, right? How is someone not telling you that you just do a small HELOC on your house at 3 or 4% interest and pay off your credit card at 21?
Yeah, a good advisor knows where to bring in a professional. Mm-hmm. And they know enough about each industry that they know what their limits are.
Right.
I'm very cautious of an advisor that tries to do it all on their own without developing professional relationships like we do with CPAs, attorneys, and our listeners know, because those are a lot of our guest speakers that we have come in.
Sure.
Attorneys, accountants, and for one person to stay educated in every industry, it's very hard to do, especially with the way difficult industries are evolving, technology and changing in government structure and things along that lines. We want to make sure that an advisor knows their limits like we do,
right,
and has that network to say, you know what, I see and I understand that there's an estate plan that needs to be put together here. I understand how it's going to affect them, but I have the perfect person to come in and do that. Just like the contractor says, I know the plumber for you.
I know the guy to do it, right?
I know the estate planning attorney for you that's going to make this easy.
You're going to need a different plumber if you have septic compared to public sewer.
Correct.
They're going to have different specialties, right?
Yep.
And the truth of it is, and I'll sidebar you before you go to the community spotlight, I had a conversation yesterday with a client that said, I met with this one particular group for the trust or an estate planning, and they said, this is the next step. The trust is the next step. This is the way I should go. Should I do it? And I said, well, yeah, I trust them because I know that they're a good group and they care about you, and they care about the people we work with. So there's that symbiotic relationship, right? That if they do well, we're going to do well. And that makes sense.
Yeah, and let's get into that advisor role in a second here. Sure. We're going to jump to our community spotlight, which is always a great time for us. Today we have a great kind of firm that we work with. Property and Casualty is a lot of times people ask us to refer on to Property and Casualty. Can we do it? I want to show out Sean Cullen, who's in the East Greenbush area. It's Cullen Insurance Agency, LLC. 16C North Greenbush Road, Troy, New York, 12180. You can reach him at 326-1191. Fax number 518-326-0475. So if you need some property casualty needs met, actually, I think you know his son.
I do actually. I coached his son a long time ago in a different life when I used to coach football, and it was a great experience. I wanted to bash him on the head a few times, but hey, you know what? That's what kids do. They drive you crazy and they make you lose all your hair. Look at that. What's going on? Surprise, surprise.
So if you're in the market for property and casualty agent and looking to find out about if your coverage is right or change up coverage, a great firm to go to in the local area. So that's our community spotlight. But jumping back into that advisor role, the other thing that clients need to understand with your advisor is a lot of times they're there as an emotional coach as well.
It's a big piece, huge piece,
right? And the psychological end of our business, I think, is a lot of times understated. Us talking a client off the ledge of making the worst financial decision in her life is just as important as managing the investments the correct way, or plugging in a professional that we need. And some of this is actually walking them through the emotional transition from saving for retirement to actually retirement.
Right.
And I find recently, as our clients age and we have this large demographic of baby boomers that are retiring, is a lot of those conversations are centered around the life coaching end of things of how do I transition and retire emotionally, breaking my habit of going to work and that type of stuff. And it doesn't sound like that's a role for an advisor, but you'd be surprised at how many conversations we get in about it.
It's a bit. I mean, you said the word coach 3 times there without even knowing it, right? Life coach, money coach, right? Job coach, right? What does a great coach do? What does a great
adapts?
Right, they adapt and they inspire their athlete, their client, right, to perform at their best. So, and not that I like the Patriots at all, but Bill Belichick is a great coach because he inspires guys. I know you're like ready to throw the water at me. I know Mike Tomlin. Yes, I know Mike Tomlin's a great coach. Only the 4th Pittsburgh coach in the history of the NFL. I know.
All right, we're sidetracking.
I know, it's all right. But, Bill Belichick brings a lot to the table with developing a person. And it's the same concept with a client, right?
He hasn't won with Tom Brady there, though.
I know he hasn't won, but if you think about the level of talent he has, he's done extremely well with the level of talent he has, and it's been a huge change, but that's okay. The point is he's done as much
with this for the advisor.
He's done as much as he can with the talent he has for them to be successful. And the advisor does the same thing with the client. They do as much as they can to let them be successful. And sometimes that's getting them out of their own way.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes that's just coaching them through a scenario where the market's down, they're stressed and they're fearful. What do I do?
Yeah, and and the different relationships that advisors have with their clients are based on the licenses that they obtain and how they present themselves to their client. And the biggest push has been in the fiduciary role, right? It's that idea of a legal responsibility to make a recommendation based on the client's best interest. And everybody thinks that their advisor can do that or does that, and in most cases they do, but doesn't mean that they technically are doing that.
Right.
And it's a different of pushing a product for, say, a commission
or a concept
or a concept,
right,
versus taking a look at the entire financial plan like we do,
right,
and saying, all right, what makes sense and is in best interest for the client based on the goals that they tell us. Right.
And we're not locked into one particular subset of choices.
Or locked into
we can use one company for investment, one company for life insurance, and one company for annuity, and they may not be the same company.
Square peg, round hole doesn't work in financial planning. We want to make sure that we're customizing that around their approach.
I feel like that's been the scariest thing for me personally as I've met with more and more friends and family that need help, is that people that do meet with an advisor, they're under the impression that there is only one set of products. There is only one, this is the way, and it's the only way. And that's not necessarily the truth. You got to be willing to have a bigger conversation, and you got to be willing to be coached to get to that next spot, And
there's a lot of generalities around there with investing, like all of this product is bad.
Right.
Or all of this investment vehicle you stay away from at a certain age or whatever. But a fiduciary has to remove that from their mind and say, okay, well, what can this be used for, and how can this enhance the client's portfolio for their best interest?
Yep.
And it may not be the advice that the client wants to hear.
Those are the hardest conversations too.
Right? It may be this is in your best interest, but the client's thinking, wow, I heard an article about this and it said don't ever do it.
I heard an article about annuities and they're awful. We should never do them, right?
Like, or stay away from this type of ETF or this type of investment or whatever it might be.
Sure.
And a true fiduciary that's looking at the whole picture and concerned about the client is going to present it regardless of what they know the client's feeling is on it.
Sometimes a great exercise that I think I've done before is explaining a vehicle without saying the word of it and then say the word at the end, right? Like, what if I could give you a guaranteed income forever, there's no risk, and the income goes until you die? Someone's like, oh my God, that's great. Oh, that's an annuity. I don't want that. Because they heard the word and oh my God, I associate the word with, I've read this thing, I've heard this thing.
Because there's different types. And
thousands
that
of
may
types.
be one type.
Right, like an immediate, right?
And what they hear is the word, but not the type
Correct.
that is suitable for them.
Yep.
Right, perfect example. I had a client, very first time I sat down with them as a prospect before they became a client.
Sure.
The very first thing they said to me was like, I don't want to talk about life insurance. Very first word. And lo and behold, when we looked at the full financial picture and snapshot and what they were trying to do with philanthropy and gift giving and protecting stuff to their kids and wealth transfer, what they ended up settling on was life insurance because it was in their best interest and it was the best product for them based on what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
But the problem was prior advisors that had talked to them had never really walked them through what it was, the different things that were available in that product line, and why it suited their need. And once they understood those things, it was an obvious choice, and they said, wow, I didn't realize that that's
all
what
the benefits.
Do.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes it's having the hard conversation, even though the client says, I don't want to talk about it. But as long as you know their goals.
A ton of financial advisors out there, they don't even talk about life insurance. They don't even talk about estate planning. They're going to go right to that. All right, what's your rate of return? What do you want for a rate of return? How many times a year do you want to talk? And I feel like as a client, if I'm hearing that, I'm probably going to say, okay, I might want more than this. I might want to have a bigger conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's not all about rate of return. I mean, yes, it's part of it, but it's about, the subsequent things you're going to do with your advisor. Do they support a local charity? Do they integrate into the community? Are they doing things that mean something to you?
Yeah. So, those are all the intangibles that make you want to work with that person.
You take care of the little things, and the big things take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Tell me who said that, Mr. Esley.
So a couple key points is check out your advisor. Yes. I would check them out on Broker Check. I would engage in that conversation about, are they a fiduciary? Are they working in your best interest? What are their products? What do they offer? Are they not afraid to offer everything across the board, regardless of what it is? Are they excluding a product line,
or are they captive? Right? Are they
captive? Maybe they're proprietary.
Maybe
they work for a firm and they only offer one product because that's all the company offers. Right? You want to know that stuff. So there's questions you should ask an advisor out there. And as always, if you have additional questions or you want to find out more or engage more in our conversation, you can reach us at 43 British American Boulevard, Latham, New York, 12110.
Oh my God, don't forget.
That's 800-222-3202. As always, it's yourtimeyourmoney.net for your net worth. Like and subscribe. Please forward this on to friends, family, other people that can benefit from these episodes. And once again, like and subscribe. And as always, it's your time.
Your money.